Hi, my name is Caden. I go to Sarah High School and I'm a rising sophomore. So this is part of my facial recognition door lock. This milestone right here is just the locking mechanism. You can see that we have the actual lock chassis right here, an Arduino controller which is then hooked up to my computer. So let's start with the chassis. So it's not too complicated, it's just a linear rack connected to a pinion gear, which is then connected to a servo motor, all encased in this chassis. And basically, a linear rack is just this kind of rod thing that has some grooves on it, so that when a gear goes into it, it can spin and it turns the torque into linear motion, so you can move it back and forth through spinning. I have the servo motor connected to my controller, and basically the servo motor is just like a motor that can spin, but it also has the added ability of a special encoder on it, which can detect angular rotations and precisely move in specific angles rather than just spinning in general. And here it's connected to my controller. You can see it's connected to pin 9, the ground, and also the 5-volt rail. So that's like the power, and then kind of like the way it communicates. And then the controller is then connected to my computer. The computer on the final product of the face lock would be the Raspberry Pi, but in this case I'm just using my computer as a demo. You can see the code, it's pretty simple and straightforward. Basically it receives either an open or closed string from the USB, and it'll execute that to the motor, so the motor will spin a certain angle to close or open it. And it also has some additional logic, such as if the lock is already open, then it's told to execute the open command, it'll just ignore it. And same vice versa. So if it's closed and it's given the closed command, it'll stay closed. But that can have some issues, since you can kind of easily move the lock with your hand, and you can kind of get it stuck because it'll be in a closed state, but the Arduino controller would think it's open, and that can add some issues. I enjoyed building the chassis. There weren't any instructions for it, so I had to kind of figure it out by myself. I also struggled with the chassis a bit. Although it looks pretty simple, there were some things I had to figure out. At first the motor was too close to the rack, the linear rack, so I had to figure out that I need to put another piece under it, so it lifted about 1 millimeter higher. And I also had to flip the orientation of the motor, so before the motor was on this side, but now I switch it to this side. This fixed 2 issues I had, one of them being that it wouldn't fully retract, the lock wouldn't fully retract, and the second issue being the code was actually inverted when it was on the other side, so now when I give it the open command, it'll actually respond. And here's a demo, so you can see it's given open command and it'll retract, so that's the lock retracting. If I give it to close, the thing will come out and open and close.